Okay, so chapter 4 of the White Wizzard story. This is pretty much, we're at the point now that the GTO video is in pre production. We are, obviously getting out and playing live shows around LA. We were playing, different small venues, etc. We were starting to consider, and we're working in a new second guitar player, because we wanted to have a twin guitar harmony attack. We'd been going as a four piece, and it'd been pretty cool as a four piece with just LaRue and myself, because we were so tight. And I know LaRue and I were a little bit like on the fence with whether we wanted to add a second guitar player due to the tightness that him and I had. And I was a very melodic bass player, doing a lot of chords and a lot of melodic stuff, even scale wise below the guitars. If LaRue was up a third or a fifth for me, whatever, sometimes kind of playing the role as both bass and almost kind of a second guitar in some ways. So it was an interesting transition we were trying to go through, and I remember kind of struggling through it a bit. But nonetheless, we went out and played shows, and they went really well. I mean, even for in its infancy, the band had a certain thing. I know Luna struggled a little bit with reproducing the studio vocals live at first, and we had to get our sea legs in general. But for the most part, most of our shows went over really, really well. We knew we had something, and I think people that saw us did too. At least people saw the seeds of our potential. I remember one night in Hollywood, and Monkey from Korn was in there was this place called the Relax Bar in Thai Town. It was in Hollywood. It was a real hole in the wall kind of spot. White Wizzard played a couple of really early shows there. And I remember he was there. He was pretty drunk. There was with a couple of other people, a couple of women, etc. And I remember after we played, I asked him, "So what'd you think?" And he was like, "There's some things I liked about it and some things I didn't like about it," we always had various reactions, from extreme, like, wow, this is amazing, and people saw what it could be, to other people that I think, are heavier guys in metal that were just like, yeah, whatever, you know what I mean? They didn't connect to it. So, but the cool thing was being resolute in the vision of bringing the good times back in metal, no matter what anybody thought. I was a very big proponent when I started White Wizzard that the next great bands won't care what anybody thinks. They're not going to be catering to a demographic. They're not going to be doing what they think is going to get signed next, yada yada. And that was my mentality with White Wizzard 100%, is I don't care what anybody thinks. And I think you have to have that kind of fearlessness in songwriting and in bringing your band out there. That's just my mentality, at least. So, in a way, that sketches a little bit of the mindset of, I think, where things were going, at least with me, and being kind of the leader of the band. I started it, and even though it was all four of us in the car, it was, becoming clear that, as I mentioned in the last chapter, that things were starting to get a little funky. And when it came to the mixes, of course, when it came to the direction of the band, I think the minds of Tyler and James Luna were changing a little bit as far as what they really felt they wanted to do. Tyler was really into Slipknot. He was into a lot of heavy stuff. Luna was into a lot of thrash and underground stuff, and I think they just had some different ideas of where they wanted to go with things, both based off what they were kind of into and also what was kind of being said to them by different people around them. And I got the impression, because they were so open to having someone come rewrite stuff and tried to talk me into it, that they were very impressionable by certain people, and therefore could waver on kind of conviction of a vision of a direction. And I felt like, in a way, I remember a key line that Tyler said when we were arguing over someone rewriting the stuff that I covered in the last chapter. And he was kind of like, "Well, how bad do you want to make it?" And my attitude back was like, "Well, if we have to let other people write our stuff or rewrite our stuff, then I don't want to. It was like literally like we make it on our conviction. Our songwriting is what we write. It's not contrived. It's what we believe in. It's what we do. And a lot of musicians sometimes get caught up in that, whether it's producers, record labels, industry people, trying to kind of tell them what they should do, and they're almost just willing to like do whatever it takes to quote unquote make it, you know. And that was never my philosophy or mentality. I came from too much raw fight from, you know, from where I had been in my life to that point. I'd fought too hard to bend over and let people kind of like, you know, try to dictate what my songwriting or my band should be. This band I formed to make the band 100% I wanted to make in the spirit of what it was going to be. I've always said, like, you know, you can hear influences because everything's kind of been done, right? Especially in hard rock and that kind of heavy metal, by the bands that came before. They were the first. The timing worked out in their favor. We were later, right? So you'll hear the influences and go, oh, okay, well, you can hear these guys were influenced by Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Rush, Scorpions, yada yada, Dio, Ozzy, Sabbath, Van Halen, Metallica, blah blah blah. But to me, those bands that came before us too, you could hear their influences. Even Zeppelin and the Stones, they were all of the blues covers they were doing, and all of the influences were there. What makes you you? What makes you a unique entity and a band is the songwriting. The sound too, and the vocals, those are all important. But songwriting, you know, is what really differentiates you and makes you something. The best bands in the world, they all are great songwriters. It's a common thread. Rush, Van Halen, Scorpions, all the bands I mentioned, Led Zeppelin, whatever. At the core, there's amazing songwriting. Yes, there's amazing musicianship too, but you know, do you know who Eddie Van Halen is like you do? Is he a household name without the songs they wrote, without Running with the Devil and David Lee Roth singing it? I don't think so. I think songwriting and vocals are one and two as far as what differentiates a band and really makes it special. White Wizzard's Achilles heel over the years, which I'll go into as we go, has been, you know, obviously keeping consistent in the singer department. The songwriter's been consistent because pretty much after this lineup, I, for the most part, aside from some small contributions here and there, which I will talk about completely, I've written everything. So anyway, we'll get to that. So in essence, basically, this is where the split was starting to happen in White Wizzard, with those mixes, with Tyler and Luna it kind of became like a thing where it was me here, Tyler and Luna here, and James LaRue somewhere in the middle. James LaRue never liked to take sides. He doesn't like to really get involved in confrontation. He's, you know, kind of just like wants to put his head in the sand and not deal with any of that stuff. So it kind of became a thing. It just kind of naturally happened that way, where it was like the main songwriter, visionary guy that started the band here, and then you kind of had Luna, who was a great singer, right? And a lot of times people will gravitate towards a great singer over anything, even songwriting. So it's kind of like this weird thing starting to develop, and it was unfortunate. In the meantime, another thing that was going on was, you know, James LaRue and I were doing everything. We were the ones that were investing all the money in the band. We were the ones, I mean, James LaRue was making business cards and making this, making that. I'd be in his house. We'd be planning, plotting, doing all this stuff. We were the ones that were being the super too proactive guys, really in the trenches, so to speak. Tyler a little bit, Luna not so much. And it was one of those things where I remember LaRue and I were a few grand in as far as everything we paid for the band. I discovered there was a band called White Wizzard in like South Carolina or something. They were like doing kind of classic rock. And the thing is, we'd spent $3,000 on this Derek Riggs artwork, and it was the White Wizzard. He made us a White Wizzard, and it was like, well, at this point, we've got everything here. We've got this investment, so to speak, and the last thing we need is someone trademarking the band name, and all this money be lost, and all this work be, really a big setback if someone was to take the name. So at a band rehearsal, I called a meeting and I said, look, guys, we got to trademark the band name. It's going to cost, like, I don't know, it was like $700. I forget what it was, through LegalZoom or whatever. I was like, we got to do this, man. And nobody wanted to throw the money together to do it. And I just was kind of like, well, I'm going to do it then. I'm going to trademark the band name. Now, it wasn't in any, there was no like thing like, I'm going to trademark the band name and then take it from you guys or anything like that. That was the last thing on my mind. On my mind was all this money's being invested. James LaRue was running low on funds. I didn't mind so much that he didn't want to throw in, but I was a little frustrated with Luna and Tyler because Luna never threw in a dime on anything. He never spent a dime on any aspect of things. Tyler threw in a little bit on the tracking sessions, but other than that, he didn't spend much either. So we were, LaRue and I had spent a few K, and I was kind of like, man, like, you guys can't even throw in on trademarking the band name. Like, what the hell? So that's when things were starting to get a little weird. Luna and Tyler were kind of, off writing stuff together and working on stuff, and I was kind of writing stuff, and LaRue was coming to my place, and communication was starting to become a little convoluted. When it's weird how just little things, it was all very small. We were starting to butt heads on little things, and Stephen Stills had a great quote for Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young on why everything went so south with those guys. And he said, it's all these little things that we were arguing about or fighting over or not communicating about, holding grudges, yada, yada. And our skulls were kind of just smacking into each other. And when that happens enough, you all become numbskulls. I think that's a great description of what happened with the first lineup of White Wizzard. We all became numbskulls. Nobody's more to blame for why it went to shit. It just kind of did in a very almost junior high way over really little dumb shit like this. It was a culmination, and it was like not communicating about it, holding grudges, yada, yada. It just continued to kind of build these little things as we went forward. Now, in the interim, Davey Voorhees is working on this incredible video. So he starts, the cast is set. He sets the dates for us to film, and we have these great times filming the video. We went out to Lost Hills, Las Virgenes area by Malibu outside of LA to film all the driving scenes and the tunnel scene with the witch and all that. We filmed the opening sequence partly in Tyler Meal's parents' driveway. Tyler Meal kind of had some pretty successful, they come from a pretty rich family up in Sierra Madre outside of Pasadena, so this big long driveway in front of their house. And we filmed the GTO driving up there, revving the engine, and that's the beginning part there. We filmed another part at a person's house in North Hollywood. Various spots. I have very good fond memories of filming the video. It was a blast, man. I remember I have one really fond memory of while we were at Tyler Meal's house. Tyler's mom had this arsenal of Girl Scout cookies in the kitchen, and James LaRue's girlfriend and me were like, I'd never had Thin Mints before, and she's like, you never had Thin Mints? And I'm like, no. So Tyler was like, you guys can eat some cookies, whatever. So I just have this great memory of like that James LaRue's girlfriend and I just started eating Thin Mints. Like, we couldn't stop. Like, we just kept raiding Tyler's mom's Thin Mints. She probably was pissed. Where's all my Thin Mints? We ate the hell out of them. I just remember us sneaking more and more Thin Mints as we're filming everything. And little things like that stay with you. Those behind the scenes moments that happen where everyone's just laughing, having a good time. I remember being out at Vasquez Rocks, where we filmed the the battle scene with the Wizard, and you know, all of us having to beg that we could film there, and doing all this stuff. And you know, I think the funniest moment of the High Speed GTO video, at least behind the scenes and filming it, was there's a part at the end where we're all in our white, whatever we had that was white. Davey said, wear as much white shit as you can, you know, for when the Wizard, you know, gives us everything, and we become kind of, you know, blessed by the Wizard, right? To be White Wizzard, whatever it is, and we get the guitars and everything at the end. We have the scene where we all turn around in unison, and oh my God, you want to talk about some white guys with no, you know, no choreography skills whatsoever. Poor Davey just had to have us keep turning around. No one would do it in time. Someone or two guys would be off every time we do the spin move, you know, like at the end. And it's still not perfect. I laugh every time I watch it because it's just such a riot. We just couldn't get that right. And Davey finally was like, on the last one that he used, he's like, that's good enough. You know, he just, that the sun was setting, I remember, is the last thing we shot, I think, for the whole thing out there at Vasquez Rocks. And absolutely hilarious. And so Davey went off to edit the video. We started planning, we wanted to do like a West Coast tour. We hadn't really done a tour at all. We'd just been playing locally. So I know a guy from another band that I mentioned earlier, Trigger Renegade, that Tyler's brother Blake Meal was in at the time. A guy named Sean, their drummer, helped us. They'd done some tours, and he kind of helped to book out a tour for us on the West Coast. And we were working this kid Mike Clemente in still. He'd been jamming with us for a while, and we were trying to see if we could make it work at a second guitar. And we wanted to take him on the road with us and do a few shows and see if it was going to work out. We weren't sure. LaRue and I were on the fence with this whole second guitar thing because we had such a tightness as a unit. Yeah, that's basically where things were. And I remember we, you know, things were continuing to kind of be weird in the behind the scenes stuff. I remember I had a song written that eventually became Death Race on Over the Top, but I'd written this kind of straight ahead, kind of dun, 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 to kind of have this really Judas Priest kind of driving kind of vibe to it. And I did the whole demo at home with a drum machine and the guitars and the bass, and it turned out really cool. And you know, I brought Luna over, and Luna like wanted to redo a bunch of stuff, and I was really resolute in what it needed to be. And I think that's where things started getting a little weird. Luna and Tyler were working on another song called Switchblade Alley that I wasn't sure about. Luna wasn't sure about this song. He wanted to change things, and we just, you know, in their defense, you know, like me or not, especially at that time, I was definitely very headstrong and very resolute in a lot of things that could be looked at as difficult or controlling by a lot of people. And I probably was a bit, you know. I'm not going to sit here and say that I was, you know, the super easiest guy to work with in that sense, but it went both ways, you know. I think Tyler and I both, and Luna, we all were pretty headstrong and cemented. And, you know, in those situations, a lot of time when there's fragile egos and there's really intense drive and passion, there's very intense vision. And sometimes when things start to skew, you need a good manager. And that's the one thing we never had. I honestly believe that the first lineup would have had a manager. We would have worked through all this stuff because it was really petty. As I said, it was very junior high. It was such a stupid falling out that we had. Very unnecessary. So all these little things were just building up, though. You know, Luna, I remember he came to my apartment one night. He wanted to change the bridge of what became Death Race. I was not into that. You know, he was kind of upset about that. I wasn't super feeling the next song they were working on. I thought they should change some things with that. It was just one of those things where we all were kind of, you know, creatively running into some differences of opinion, and things were suddenly skewing from what seemed to be so aligned. At one moment, it was skewing off into this other thing.